The sun shone bright on ADEMOYE's wedding day, painting the village square in golden hues. Laughter and drums filled the air as people danced, celebrating the union of two families. ADEMOYE stood tall in her shimmering wrapper, her coral beads glinting in the light. She was the pride of her father, the jewel of UMWOMA village. Her groom, UCHE, stood by her side, beaming with pride. As the priest raised his hands to bless the union, a sudden chill swept through the crowd. ADEMOYE shivered. Then, without warning, her legs buckled. The crowd gasped as she crumpled to the ground. ADEMOYE, UCHE shouted, catching her limp body before it hit the dirt. Chaos erupted. Women wailed, elders whispered, and children clung to their mothers. The priest stepped forward, his face grim. "This is not ordinary," he muttered. ADEMOYE's eyes fluttered open, but she wasn't in the village square anymore. She was in a dimly lit shrine, the smell of burning herbs filling her nostrils. Her wrists were bound in iron chains that felt cold against her skin. Around her, masked elders stood in a circle, their voices deep and haunting as they chanted her name. Where am I?" ADEMOYE stammered, her voice trembling. One elder stepped forward, his mask carved with the face of a roaring lion. "You are here to pay for the sins of your ancestors," he said, his voice echoing in the shrine. ADEMOYE's heart pounded. "What sins? I have done nothing wrong." The elder raised his staff, pointing it at her. "Your family betrayed the gods 100 years ago. Today, the gods demand justice. You must retrieve the sacred stone from the Forbidden Forest. If you fail, your family will be wiped from the earth." ADEMOYE's breath caught in her throat. The Forbidden Forest was a place of nightmares, a place no one returned from. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because the blood of the oath runs through your veins," the elder replied. The doors of the shrine creaked open. Standing there was UCHE, his face pale but determined. "If she's going, I'm going to," he said, his voice steady. The elder's chants grew louder, and the air grew heavy. The journey had begun. The moon hung low in the sky as ADEMOYE and UCHE stood at the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Towering trees stretched toward the heavens, their twisted branches forming eerie shadows that danced in the night. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth, and the distant cries of unseen creatures. "We don't have to do this," UCHE whispered, gripping ADEMOYE's hand tightly. ADEMOYE shook her head, her chains rattling softly. "If we don't, my family will perish. I can't live with that burden." Behind them, the elders watched in silence, their masked faces betraying no emotion. The elder with the lion mask stepped forward and handed ADEMOYE a small clay pot. "This will guide you," he said. "But be warned, every step you take will test your strength, your courage, and your love. The forest is alive, and it will not make your journey easy." ADEMOYE nodded, clutching the pot to her chest. UCHE took a deep breath, his jaw set in determination. Together, they stepped into the forest, the elder's chants fading behind them. The first steps felt like entering another world. The trees seemed to close in around them, their gnarled roots twisting like snakes across the forest floor. Strange whispers echoed through the air, though no one else was there. "Stay close," UCHE said, his voice barely above a whisper. As they ventured deeper, the forest seemed to come alive. Shadows moved in the corners of their eyes, and the ground beneath their feet shifted as if it were breathing. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the silence. ADEMOYE froze, clutching UCHE's arm. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Before UCHE could respond, the ground split open beneath them. They tumbled into a dark pit, landing in a heap. Above them, the opening sealed itself, plunging them into darkness. A faint glow emerged from the clay pot in ADEMOYE's hands. Its light revealed carvings on the walls, ancient symbols telling the story of a betrayal and a curse. "This is no ordinary journey," UCHE said, helping ADEMOYE to her feet. "The gods are watching us." ADEMOYE held the pot tighter, its light flickering like a heartbeat. "Then we must not fail." The glow of the clay pot lit the narrow path as ADEMOYE and UCHE pressed deeper into the heart of the forest. Their fall into the pit had left them bruised, but they couldn't turn back. The whispers in the air grew louder, forming strange words neither of them could understand. "This place is alive," UCHE muttered, glancing around nervously. "We need to stay alert." As they walked, the ground began to shift beneath them. The once solid earth turned soft, like quicksand, pulling at their feet. UCHE grabbed ADEMOYE's arm, keeping her from sinking. "Don't stop moving," he shouted. They fought their way forward until the ground hardened again. Exhausted, they leaned against a tree to catch their breath. But the tree bark suddenly moved, twisting into the shape of a face. Its eyes glowed red as it spoke. "Why have you come to disturb the peace of the forest?" The tree boomed, its voice shaking the air. ADEMOYE stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. "We come to retrieve the sacred stone. My family's blood demands it." The tree let out a deep, rumbling laugh. "Many have come before you, but none have returned. Prove your worth, or the forest will consume you." Before they could respond, the ground beneath them cracked open, and they were transported to a clearing surrounded by glowing, ethereal beings. Each figure held a spear, their faces blank but their presence menacing. "You must pass the trial of trust," one of the beings said, stepping forward. "Only the worthy may continue." Two paths appeared before them. One was a narrow bridge made of brittle vines hanging over a bottomless pit. The other was a smooth, golden road that seemed to lead to safety. "The choice is yours," the being said. ADEMOYE turned to UCHE, her heart pounding. "The golden road looks safe, but it feels wrong." UCHE nodded. "The forest thrives on deception. We take the bridge." Holding hands, they stepped onto the fragile vines. The bridge swayed, creaking under their weight. Halfway across, the vines snapped, plunging them into the darkness below. Instead of hitting the ground, they landed softly on a bed of glowing flowers. A voice echoed around them. "You have chosen wisely. The journey continues." The flowers opened, revealing a narrow path leading deeper into the forest. ADEMOYE and UCHE exchanged a glance. The real challenge was still ahead. The path before them was narrower now, winding deeper into the forest. The air grew colder, and the glow from the clay pot dimmed with each step. Shadows stretched longer, twisting into strange forms that seemed to watch their every move. "We're close," ADEMOYE whispered, clutching the pot tightly. "I can feel it." UCHE nodded, though his eyes scanned the surroundings cautiously. "Stay alert. This place is playing tricks on us." As they walked, a thick mist began to rise, swirling around their legs. Whispers filled the air, louder than before, calling their names. ADEMOYE froze when she heard a familiar voice. "ADEMOYE, my daughter," the voice called, soft and soothing. ADEMOYE turned to see a figure stepping out of the mist. It was her late mother, draped in a white wrapper, her smile warm and inviting. "Mother," ADEMOYE gasped, her heart racing. UCHE grabbed her arm. "It's not real," he said firmly. "Don't listen to it." "But it's her," ADEMOYE argued, tears streaming down her face. The figure stretched out a hand. "Come to me, my child. Rest here, where it's safe." ADEMOYE hesitated, stepping closer. But as she reached out, the clay pot glowed fiercely, revealing the figure's true form, a withered, grotesque creature with hollow eyes and sharp teeth. It screeched and disappeared into the mist. ADEMOYE staggered back, trembling. "It felt so real," she whispered. "The forest preys on our minds," UCHE said, pulling her close. "We can't trust anything here." They pressed on, the mist thinning as they entered a clearing. At the center stood an ancient altar, covered in vines and glowing faintly. On the altar rested the sacred stone, a shimmering object pulsating with an eerie light. ADEMOYE reached for it, but a deafening roar shook the ground. A massive figure emerged from the shadows, its body covered in scales and its eyes burning like fire. It was the guardian of the stone. "You dare to take what is mine." The creature growled, its voice like thunder. UCHE stepped in front of ADEMOYE, raising his fists despite the creature's size. We've come too far to turn back now. The creature lunged, and the battle for the sacred stone began. The Guardian's roar echoed through the forest as it charged at UCHE and ADEMOYE. Its fiery eyes blazed with fury, its massive claws tearing at the ground. UCHE pushed ADEMOYE aside just as the creature swiped, narrowly missing her. "Stay back," UCHE shouted, grabbing a broken branch from the ground. He swung it with all his strength, but the creature barely flinched. ADEMOYE clutched the clay pot, her mind racing. The elders had said the pot would guide them. As UCHE fought to hold off the Guardian, she held the pot higher, its faint glow intensifying. The Guardian paused, its fiery eyes narrowing. "The pot," it growled. "The blood of the oath flows within it." Realizing the pot held the key, ADEMOYE stepped forward, her fear giving way to resolve. "You protect this stone, but you don't understand its purpose. The gods demand justice, but the curse ends with us." The Guardian hesitated, its massive form looming over her. "The curse was born of betrayal. How can you, the blood of the betrayers, claim to end it?" "Because we choose unity over division," UCHE said, stepping beside ADEMOYE. "The gods punished my bride's ancestors, but we've fought together, risking everything to bring this curse to an end. That must count for something." The clay pot's glow intensified, filling the clearing with golden light. The Guardian roared again, but this time it wasn't in anger, it was in pain. Its form began to dissolve, breaking into shards of light that swirled around the sacred stone. "The curse is broken," the Guardian's voice echoed as it vanished. "Take the stone and fulfill the oath." ADEMOYE approached the altar, her hands trembling as she picked up the sacred stone. It was warm, pulsing with life. The moment she touched it, a wave of energy surged through the forest. The trees straightened, the whispers ceased, and the air became lighter. Hand in hand, ADEMOYE and UCHE returned to the shrine. The elders awaited them, their masks removed, their faces filled with awe. "You have done what none before you could," the lion-masked elder said. "The gods are satisfied, and the curse is no more." As they walked back to the village, the first rays of dawn broke through the trees. They weren't just returning as husband and wife. They were heroes who had united their families and freed their people from a century-old burden. In the distance, the village bells rang, not in warning, but in celebration.